Good morning.
To another edition of the Morning Cup. Page Arizona's morning show. Good to see you guys today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for liking, commenting, and sharing on all of these videos.
Yes, thank you.
And you're only partially here today, Lois.
Apparently, I did not realize that this would be...
I don't know what to tell you, man. Something is going on over there. Yeah, that's interesting. Because it's bluish.
It is bluish.
And I don't understand. Usually it's only yellows and greens that go bye-bye.
Well, it's turquoise.
Yeah,
so
but I'm wearing blue.
I realize, but I'm thinking with turquoise, it's a mixture of the blue and green. And
I don't know. That's too complicated for my brain this early in the morning. Michael says,
funny.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Michael.
Gina says, Good morning.
Good morning.
And David saying, Hey, baby, ¿qué pasó? Yeah, all right.
I love it.
Steven says, Good morning from the Black Cup.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here today. So, yeah, that is, I don't know. Partially see-through.
I am. Well, you know.
Apparently she's being a wallflower today, which, let me tell you, is not normal behavior for Lois.
Actually, yes, it is.
No, it is not. You are very far from a wallflower, dear. Not even close, man. Not even close. Let me check the comments over here. Scott says, Good morning, you're on the morning, Scott. Good to see you. Horseshoe Bend says, Hey, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yes, it is.
A beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?
Oh,
sorry.
Boy. Oh, boy.
What?
We just went from Mr. Rogers to Saw.
I don't know what you're talking about. I want to play a game. Gina
no.
says she's disappearing. Yes, she is. Renee says, Good morning, Renee.
Good morning.
How you doing? Debbie says, Good morning, Debbie. Good to see you. Our internet is having massive issues. We do apologize for that. Let's see. Michael says Lois is partially invisible. Yes.
Yes.
She did not check out the shirt before she came in. It's blue, and for some reason, it's blending. I don't know what's going on.
I was thinking, apparently, I didn't fix something in the past.
She's trying to play footsie with me down here. Keep your feet on your
I
side.
did not realize you did not have shoes on.
Hey, at least I'm wearing pants. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
At least I'm wearing pants. Renee says, looks like a sheer curtain.
It does.
Indigo says, Good morning, it's my Saturday.
Woo!
Good morning, Indigo.
Congratulations, Indigo.
And Mary says, Good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
And Antelope says, What up? Nice shirt, though.
Why, thank you. I like it. I do like it, and I'm picky when it comes to my shirts.
Yes, she's very picky.
I am. They have to feel nice.
And they have to look nice, and they have to be just so, and if not, then there's this one, and it depends on the day and the way you're feeling about it, and then... Oh, sorry, what?
And then I steal yours.
Yeah, yesterday, she stole 2 of my shirts.
I did.
And she didn't like one of them, so she wore a different one. Nothing. It's terrible, man.
But it's true.
You're like off the screen partially. You gotta be centered in the thing, otherwise people are gonna be like...
No, they won't. They can obviously partially see me today.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're only partially here.
I am. But no, I was just looking at how this is working today. I was thinking Back to the Future.
Back to the Future? Oh, yeah! With the photograph?
Yeah, that's why I said apparently I didn't fix something.
That's another thing that's stuck in my head is theme songs to movies. It's like the lyrics for the old songs. See, this is why I can't remember anything. That's terrible.
Oh, boy.
1.21 kilowatts!
Oh, no. That's horrifying.
Diana says, Good morning.
Good morning.
And the wave is waving. Hi, wave. Good to see you out there.
We've got all 3 today.
Yeah, all 3 of you guys are out there. How's the weather out there in our national areas, huh?
Yes.
That's fun stuff.
It's been nice here.
Yeah.
I'm just worried for when the winds come.
The winds come, yes. The wind is coming. It's like the Game of Thrones, you know. Winter is coming. The winds are coming. The winds are coming.
Oh, my.
We don't have to worry about the dragons because the wind will blow them out of the way. Just saying.
Unless it is the dragons that are causing the wind.
It could be. Yeah, a little bit of beans.
I was meaning their wings. Oh, my goodness. Really?
You know,
Really? Beans?
Renee
Beans?
says, and what is wrong with stealing your shirts? I do it all the time. You don't steal my... Are you giving her my shirts?
No, she was meaning the significant other.
Oh, the majestic stash. Huh? You're stealing his shirts. I see how it is. All right.
Hey, it's part and parcel to the whole gig. So,
Oh, all right, fine. So that's our duty is to get our shirts.
It's in the fine print that y'all don't read.
Man, what are you, Facebook? You get fine print everywhere. You have to click here to agree to use everything, and by clicking here, you agree to give up everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
We don't know where clicking here is. But anyway, according to Short for the purpose of...
Oh, my.
Renee says the majestic stash doesn't care as long as I wash it before I return it. Yeah, I don't even care about that.
Yeah,
it's like
pretty much. The caveat to Chris's is as long as I don't stretch out the sleeves.
Yeah, because she like pulls and stretches and then... and I'm like, no! or if the collar's too close, she'll go... I'm like, no! And then the shirt's toasted.
No, it's not. The washer and dryer fix it.
Well,
they
usually
go back to place.
Yeah, but if we don't get it fixed, then I look like one of them dudes out of the 70s. I'll have to get like a little patch of rug right here. Maybe some gold chains or something.
Oh, no.
Yeah, look like Ron Jeremy or something.
Oh, no.
Let's see. Dave says, you washed them before returning? Apparently Dave has been left out of that part of the equation.
That was not in your agreement, evidence.
Yeah, I guess there's little subtle differences depending on who it is. Yeah. I don't even know, man. Oh, yeah, we do apologize for the internet, guys. Hopefully everything's coming through. It is gone to plaid. It's doing its Spaceballs thing.
It seems like it is.
It seems like. I don't know, though, man. Look at that.
No. I've got it on my trusty dusty phone here.
Yeah, it's all jerky.
And it seems like it's working.
It's a jerky.
Oh, goodness.
Jerky! And it's not teriyaki flavored.
Oh, good Lord.
Not a huge fan of the teriyaki. All right, let's see. Renee says most times, yes. No.
Yeah, most times yeah.
All right, so who wants to play a little bit of an experiment with us here? Anybody? We got any volunteers? What? Why are you giving me the crazy eyes?
I'm scared. You mentioned experiment.
Yeah, it's an experiment.
That's an E word.
Oh. Well, yeah, but it's nothing too serious, and it doesn't actually require very much effort on anyone's part.
Oh, okay.
So, that's not that big of a deal. Renee says, kind of max headroomy. Man, I hate it when it does that. Let's see. Kelly says, I steal Scott shirts all the time. Makes him so mad. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. David says, learned many years ago that what is hers and what is mine is hers. Yeah, that's the way it works, isn't it?
Yeah, most men don't look good in dresses and skirts.
Nope, not usually. Although the occasional thong is quite comfortable.
Oh, Lord, no. No. Oh.
No, not really.
I was going to say, what are you not telling me?
Yeah, our Max Headroom lost some of our viewers. Apparently they can't deal with it. They can't hack it, man. They're like, no.
Or the whole comment of you in a thong scared them off.
No, that was gone before.
Okay.
Let's see. Scott says, let's experiment. All right. So what I want to try and do is, I've got this program open. They're supposed to have fixed it. What I want somebody to do, if you can, is get off of the Facebook side, go over to YouTube, log in and watch us over there and try and comment, because I'm supposed to be able to see the comments from YouTube on this program. If it works, it'll be awesome. So somebody pop over there real quick and message something.
That would probably explain the internet issues.
No, this is not internet issues.
Oh.
So you don't understand how this thing works. It's fine. Shh. Let's see. Renee's going. I don't know what.
The G string.
I know. I was trying to.
Okay.
Dave says
it had been more than 30 seconds, so I figured I had to explain.
Dave says, I am in for experiment. Already in my lab coat. Sweet. Try doing the YouTube thing. Somebody pop over there and send us a message. Excuse me. And I'm not sure. Oh, there it is. Look. Let's see if that's working. Let's see. Maybe. Dave says, comment. Yay! It works on YouTube. Woo! Just so you guys know, remember, we're always complaining about the Facebooks and the pain in the butt that it is and what it does. And wow, yeah, it looks like a bunch of people jumped over to YouTube. Anyway, comment if you guys can. Let's see if you can see my comment. Let me know if you can see it, Dave. Testing.
Or anybody who's over there.
Yeah, anybody who's over there. Can anybody see my comment?
You are testing blah.
Testing blah. Anyway, we're going to slowly... Oh, yes!
Gina's over there.
Gina says hello. Ray says hello. Yay!
Woo-hoo!
All right. That's awesome. That is amazing. We're going to be slowly migrating things the YouTube direction, so I wanted to see if this thing works. Because the last time I tried it, it was a pile of poo. But they've improved it, so apparently it's working. Yay! And it's easier to read because I got it on the big screen. It's not way over there. It's right here.
Oh my!
Awesome. And Renee says, "Blah to you too." Oh.
And Dave's saying, "Seen it."
See, what?
Your comment.
Oh, seen it.
See, 30 seconds, man.
So is the video clear on the YouTube side or is it clear on the Facebook side? For those of you guys that are over on the YouTube side, how's it working over there? Let me know, because, YouTube is meant for video. Facebook is just trying to make it work and screwing it up. So let me know. Let's see. Renee says no emojis here, though. I know. The emojis are fun, but you could make, like little, like with the colon and the smiley face and stuff like that. But you can hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button while you're over there, and the little bell to get notifications when we go live.
Share.
Is there a share button? There's a share button as well, so you could share it from
it's
YouTube
drop down
to the other things, and we can make the YouTube channel bigger. Yeah, all right.
And Dave's saying, testing, not blah. Yay! Staying here now.
Awesome. Kelly says, hi, guys. Woohoo. All right.
Hello.
And look at that. We've got people over here on the YouTube side, and more people are coming in on the Facebook side, even though our internet sucks. Yay. It's amazing.
Oh,
this
that's
is funny.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we got 2 comment streams going. The only thing that really irritates me about this program is it works on YouTube, it works on Twitter, and it works on Twitch, but it doesn't work with Facebook. It's like Facebook has its own proprietary crap. Let's see. Gina says it did freeze a second, but is it smoother than
Clear
Facebook?
but jumpy is what Kelly is saying.
Clear but jumpy. Okay. Well, we're doing what we can. Unfortunately, the internet is misbehaving, so we'll have to check it on a normal day when we're actually having some stuff going on over here.
We have normal days?
Let's see. Scott says Kelly said she can see it. Woohoo! Awesome.
Yay!
Thank you very much for letting us know. That's awesome. What?
You didn't answer my question.
What?
We have normal days?
Maybe. I don't know. What? I'm just saying, we're testing on YouTube and Facebook, so that's awesome. And I know the Twitter one works because we have one fan that actually uses Twitter, and he likes our video streams every day. So.
Yes, he does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harlan. We do appreciate it.
We do.
That's funny. You can watch him going down over here. The only issue is that we can't see how many people are watching on the YouTube side of things, so that'll be something we have to work on. But yeah, that internet is something. Gina says it is clear. Awesome. That works.
We can watch if I leave here.
Oh, and try and log on to the
YouTube
side?
And go on to the YouTube side.
Yeah, but I don't know if it says how many people are actually watching over
Actually,
there.
It does.
Does it? Oh.
Well, the last time
The last time you did it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have your volume turned down, Lois?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Yeah.
Okay, the numbers may be wrong because it says only 3.
Oh, okay. So apparently 3 people are watching over on the YouTube. Renee says, "Yep, Lois is still partially invisible." Yeah, that's not going to change.
That's a screen thing.
Yeah, that's on this end.
That was didn't think that this type of blue or turquoise would blend in with the background.
I didn't think so. That was kind of strange. I'm not going to lie. So anyway,
but at least the logo comes through.
Oh, yeah, this is true. And Antelope Canyon liked it, so.
Yes.
All right.
Woohoo. I like it because it is a comfy shirt.
Yes.
It's not scratchy or stiff.
Scratchy or stiff? Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Okay, well, I guess that works. It is a little wrinkly, though.
Well, that's what happens.
So, anyway, let's see. I had something in my brain, and now it's gone. I blame you, Lois. I blame you.
Oh, and Kelly's saying... Hers says 5 people are watching.
Really? See, you never know with these counters. Like Facebook, each one of those could be 10 people. It's been 10 people, it's been 5 people, and it's been 1 person. You never know, and it keeps fluctuating. And yeah, but you can watch it afterwards and you can actually see how many people it is. That thing's never accurate.
I already read that.
Okay, so yeah, it just
now
popped through. Up. So apparently there's a little bit of lag time with the yeah. Well. What do you do, Lois? What do you do? Sorry, guys.
Oh, goodness.
All right, so anyway, did you, let's see, David says, what is normal?
Good question.
Yeah, that's true. There is no, well, I guess our normal is crazy.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Morning Cup. For entertainment purposes only. Did you see my title I put in there?
No, I didn't.
Okay, would you like to read it for us?
Let's see, Morning Cup of the day after yesterday.
Yep, it's the day after yesterday. Did everybody survive Murphy April Fool's Day?
Yeah.
That was ugly for some people.
There were some good April Fool's jokes out there.
I was leading into
yesterday.
That. Yeah, I was leading into that.
Some I
didn't. She just kind of jumped off the cliff.
Didn't see until today, though.
Yeah, well, that's Facebook for you. Yeah, Facebook. Well, don't even get me started. They keep asking me. They're like, "How was your video streaming experience?" It sucked because you suck. That's why. Not you guys, Facebook. And they're like, well, can you please explain to us what the problem is? We're like, well, I have 9,000 followers, and when we went live, you only let 120 people see. Like, whoa. And they're like, well, you have to pay to have your audience see it. But the people chose to follow the page. Why should I have to pay to tell them that I'm doing something? That doesn't make any sense. How does that make sense in any way? They're like, well, so yeah, go figure.
So Dave is saying hail Murphy, and Renee says barely. All Murphy, no April Fools.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, Murphy
that
one
sucks.
day. Oh, I tell you.
And then David says his Facebook says 3.
His Facebook says 3. Mine
Yep.
says 5. I don't know, man. I don't know. But that could be anywhere between 5 people and 15 people that are actually watching. Or more. It's hilarious. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, Gina, I'm glad.
Oh, I saw her post on it. She said she was stuck behind a vehicle fire on I-17. That's never a good thing.
Glad you were safe. I hope everybody involved was safe.
Yeah,
and okay.
Definitely. Coming out of Phoenix, that's a bad one too. Coming up that last hill right there. It's like everything overheats and burns right there at the top of the hill.
Yeah, and you can see where they.
Yeah, you can see the melted asphalt where they had to stop and pull over. It's freaky, man.
It is.
Let's see. Scott says mine says 6. Yeah, see? You never know, man. And then what is YouTube doing over here? It says 5 over there, too. So who knows, guys? I don't know. But if you're on the YouTube side, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit the little bell, and you'll get notifications when we go live over here. Eventually, we're going to be doing our live videos, like broadcasts and stuff, over on the YouTube thing. But anyway, okay,
that's
so
later.
Well, yeah, it's coming. It's coming, man. It's coming. We're gonna take Facebook and be like, bah, 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 bah. Just beat it to death.
Oh boy,
what? Nothing wrong with beating Zuckerberg in the head with a baseball bat, especially with nails in it. It'll help ventilate his ego. What?
Oh my!
Just saying.
This show's for entertainment purposes, though.
Yeah, but I'm not kidding. Knock it off.
Oh my goodness! What? Oh no!
Oh man! And you guys can share the YouTube video over to the Facebook side as well. So just saying, the more stuff we get going on YouTube, the better, because we're going to be doing some epic stuff soon. Very epic stuff. But before we get on to the epic stuff, apparently you wanted to go over the April Fool's stuff that happened yesterday.
You started though.
What?
You started that though.
Started what?
The April Fool's stuff.
Oh.
And then I just jumped in, and you said I just went beyond.
Let's see. Gina says, I was sure hope they were all okay. Oh, yeah. I hope they were okay. That's not good, man. Not good. So, yes, April Fool stuff. We actually did, normally I wouldn't do it, but I went ahead and shared an April Fool's story from an official organization because I was laughing my butt off. Mm-hmm. And the funniest part was, apparently, our audience, you guys, the network, are like the smartest people on the face of the earth. Because over on that official site, there was a lot of pissed off people. People were bent, man. They thought it was serious, and they're like, ah! And the whole thing, I mean, really, did you actually read the article? It's not even that long. And you read it, and it's the funniest thing since just pretty much anything.
Pretty much, yeah.
And all you guys were laughing and giving the thumbs up and commenting, and it was great. But on the official page, oh my goodness, man, there were some... I don't even know. It was just like, Wow, you guys are idiots.
People, I think people were foaming at the mouth.
Yeah, they were. There were definitely some froth going on there. I don't even know what to say, man. It's like, what?
Oh, goodness.
Gina says the truck was completely burned out.
Ooh.
Oh, that is not good.
No,
I hope
it's
everyone
not.
got out okay.
Yes.
But yeah, there was. So if you guys missed it, it's on the news feed. It said it was the Painted Desert. Vandalism is rampant in the area and stuff, but apparently now it's legal because they're repainting the Painted Desert.
Yeah.
Things along those lines. It was hilarious.
It was funny.
Mostly because after millions of years, the colors have washed out, and so having to correct it in Photoshop is getting annoying. So they went ahead and just repainted it.
That was great.
They're like, apparently vandalism is not illegal. It was amazing.
It got me for a couple of seconds.
Did it really?
It did, as I was reading it. It was as I was reading it. And then the further I got into it, I went, oh, okay.
That's pretty funny, I'm not gonna lie. And then I saw one this morning that I wish I had seen yesterday. It was even better than that.
It was.
Oh, did you see it, the rock slide one?
Yeah, because you had shared it.
Oh, I did? Okay. So there was a rock slide one. This happened a couple of weeks ago up in Utah. There was a massive rock slide due to rain. But apparently they found out it wasn't actually due to the rain. They do have a suspect in custody right now. And his name is Wile E. Coyote. Apparently the evidence was a pile of birdseed under the boulders. It was so much fun.
Great. And then they added a phone number.
Oh, did they really?
They did. At the end of it, they added a phone number to call if you were a witness or had any information on it. And if you look at the numbers that they used, it spelled out April Fools.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. That's a lot of fun. Now, the only issue I have with that would concern me is my truck's name is Wiley. So they better not be blaming my truck.
So your truck is named Wile E. Coyote. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does it leave birdseed around?
I don't know, man. It does leave some stuff around. It's a little old.
Issues with birdseed in your carburetor?
Maybe.
What?
I don't know. It does have some issues. That's what I'm saying. A little old. Little bits of itself here and there.
Oh my!
It's a restoration project in progress, man. I'm just saying. And who knows what it gets up to at night by itself?
That is true.
Exactly.
That is true.
Yeah.
We've all more than likely seen either previews or the movie Cars.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Carrie is saying, good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Good morning,
Carrie.
Good to see ya. Debbie says, seen that too. So funny. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It was great.
Oh, and for those of you guys just joining us on the Facebook side, there is a large segment of the population that is over on the YouTube side as we're testing the new interface for the chat over there.
Yes.
So if you're wondering where all of our normal people are, most of them are over there.
But we are commenting to both.
Yeah, we can see both now. So we're good. And the internet keeps going. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. What? Are you out of coffee?
Almost.
Oh, she's out of coffee. Everybody run for the hills. We're all going to die.
No, that's your job.
Oh, are you back on Facebook?
Yes, I moved back over to Facebook.
I was like, what? That doesn't look like the YouTube interface. The last of your coffee wasted through the sinus.
No. No.
What? Come on, man. Oh, jeez. So anyway, yeah, there was the whole April Fool's thing. There were quite a few good ones out there. Somebody commented on the one that we shared. They said, I've been on the lookout today just to be careful because, I'm not going to believe anything I see, but I've been fooled at least twice so far. I love it when you get a good one of those posts where it's like, what? And then you're like, oh yeah, it's April 1st.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like, wait, that's the sad part is you have to question it. Be like, is it really an April Fool's joke? I gotta check.
Yeah.
That's how crazy the world is today. You never know.
No, I think the world was like that before the internet and before mass worldwide mass media like this, with social media.
Right.
It's just now that everybody has access to it.
I disagree. Because it's like one of my favorite places that puts out funny stuff, The Onion. Who here knows what The Onion is? You know, the satirical, used to be a newspaper, then it was a website and stuff. The Onion is amazing. But The Onion's been having trouble coming up with stories that are weirder than reality. Come on, man. That has got to be a sign of the time.
And now The Onion The Onion focused on politics mainly. And I think the majority of politicians took it as a playbook.
Yeah. It's like, no, this is not an instruction manual. It's supposed to be satire.
But The Onion actually has competition now. Through
reality,
besides reality, with a new one called the Babylon Bee.
Oh yeah, you showed me a couple of articles.
And yesterday they did a really good one, and the headline, I didn't click on it because I knew I'd die laughing. The headline was, what was it? It was CNN puts out real news for the first time on April Fool's Day.
That was amazing. That was a good one.
It was good. I mean, you could change over any national news network and it would work just fine.
Actually, put out a new one. April Fools. Carrie says the video is not matching the audio. Y'all are like a low budget kung fu clip.
Kung fu flip.
That's what I said in my head. It didn't come out right. It's because of the internet, Carrie. We do apologize. I don't know what to tell you. We'll have to see what we can do. I don't know, man.
And Gina says the Chick-fil-A guy told me they were out of Chick-fil-A sauce.
That's great.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now, see, that's the fun kind of April Fool stuff.
Yes.
You don't like the evil kind of April Fool stuff.
That's wrong.
That's not funny. I don't really enjoy that. I'm not a big one for practical jokes that actually cause like harm.
Issues. Yeah.
And some people are. That's just not my thing.
No. I've never been into those either. Yeah. I've known too many people who like doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't see where the fun is.
I don't know. But
it's supposed to be fun, man. Yeah. For all involved.
But we didn't actually do anything yesterday other than sharing the article from the other place.
That is true.
That's pretty funny.
I guess we're not inventive enough anymore.
I don't even know what to say. So, yeah, I don't know. We're going to try. I don't know. I'm kind of considering possibly trying to do some things with the internet, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm torn. Not rip torn, but torn.
I was gonna say, wait a minute here. What?
I am not rip torn, but I am torn. I don't know what to do. That's frustrating. Because when it does stuff like that, it's like, really, come on.
I know.
You know, we're trying to run a show here. No, I don't want to.
We're supposed to have fun.
Click, click, boom.
Oh boy.
Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. What? No. Sorry, pardon me. I had a moment. We're in the show for different purposes only.
Oh my goodness. And Carrie says, enter the Grump Toad, starring Chris Lee.
Wait. I've got this. I am the Grump Toad. Did it work? Did it come across?
Well, we can see over here, maybe.
Hold on, let's watch. Nope, it froze.
It did. Oh. Oh, wait, here we go.
Now there's your kung fu flick
there you go.
Carrie.
There you go. Oh my goodness, that is hilarious.
That is. Oh man, yeah. Enter the Grump Toad.
Yes.
Oh. So anyway, back to other stuff. I had some. Oh yeah. So we do have some amazing things coming up planned. Don't forget, the People Apocalypse is still taking place. It just takes a lot of videoing, and then there's editing, and then there's this, and then there's that, and blah blah blah. And you guys don't need to hear about all the boring minutia, but it's not just go out and run a gun and shoot it. It doesn't really work that way. Although we could shoot some peeps.
No.
I could take them out to the range, man.
No.
Why?
No.
I want to shoot peeps. Come on. No. She's no fun. Anyway.
I'm a lot of fun.
Michael says, grum-dum.
Yeah, pretty much.
Speaking of which, who was it? I think it was Renee in the network group. She put up the thing with the turtle that's slapping
I saw
another
that
turtle.
this morning.
I've
Never seen that before.
It's slapping another turtle. Just
And the first thing that came to my brain when I saw that was, oh, well, you could see who the boy is and who the girl is, and he probably ticked her off. She's going.
It was like, if you guys haven't seen it in the network group, make sure you check it out.
It was pretty funny.
I was laughing for a good couple of minutes on that one.
And I didn't know turtles did that.
Yeah, well, me either. But
Apparently they do.
Oh,
At least those do.
Did you see the other turtle one? I think, where was
The
it?
Bowser?
Yes! Somebody knitted or crocheted a Bowser from the original Mario Brothers suit for their turtle, put it on the turtle, and then put some music as it was running around.
Oh, I didn't listen to it, but it was cute. It was
amazing.
That one had me dying.
Yeah, that was.
I think Renee shared that one to the group.
Was
as
it
well.
Renee? I don't remember, but it was. Oh my gosh, I was dying.
That was good.
That brings me up, since we're talking about stuff that was shared into the groups and everything. Renee's smiling over here, so it must have been you. But, what was it? Yeah. So, yesterday, Facebook pops up with one of those weird notifications for me and congratulated me for being on Facebook for 10 years. And yes, apparently I joined Facebook on April Fool's Day 10 years ago. I was just like, what? Renee says both me. Okay, all right. So it was you. Those were hilarious, Renee. I was dying.
Yeah.
You definitely made my day with those. That was hilarious. But 10 years ago on April Fool's Day, I didn't join Facebook. I rejoined Facebook because prior to that, I had another page, but I could not remember the password. So I created a new account.
Instead of trying to...
I tried. It wasn't working because not only had I forgotten the password for Facebook, I forgot the password for the email address that had the recovery stuff for Facebook. It was a darker time 10 years ago. It wasn't as easy as it is today to try and rectify the situation, Lois. It wasn't. It was different back then. It was harder. Now they make it so it's, technically stupid proof. I'm just saying. They're like, we can text it, we can do smoke signals, we can do this, we can do that. I mean, okay, that's cool. Back then, if you didn't have one of your other things, you were hosed. So, 10 years on Facebook. My. Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah, check out my if you guys want, check out my Facebook page, my personal one, the Chris Lee, and you can see that on there. It's got a 10-year anniversary. It's hilarious because in the 10 years, I guess it only uses profile pictures, and I've only changed my profile picture 2 or 3 times. So there's 10 years of stuff, funny. And there's 3 profile pictures.
That is funny.
Although it did miss one of them. I had one year for Christmas. I dressed up as Master Chief. And I had a hat, and it was fun. It was for the kids. They liked it. So anyway, they thought the Master Chief came in. So it was good stuff. What?
Nothing.
I'm just saying, it was fun. They had a blast.
No, well,
and then they told me all about it later that day that Master Chief came to visit them with presents. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, well,
they were very excited.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. They were very excited. We had good times. What?
Nothing.
Excuse me. All right. So, anyway, there was the thing. 10 years. How long have you guys been on Facebook? I mean, I don't really think about it, and then something like that pops up, and I'm like, damn, that's a long time. But I've only actively been producing stuff for the last, just over a year and a half.
This is true.
Yeah, where we've actually been doing the LPNN thing. So totally different ball of wax when you've just got normal Facebook and when you're actually putting stuff out. It's a lot different. It's a lot more hectic this way. That's what I'm saying. A little more hectic.
I'm just listening and giggling.
You're supposed to respond so that there's a dynamic.
I don't know how to respond. You're just stating fact.
I got nothing. Apparently the show is over. Lois is refusing to participate.
Oh, good Lord.
What?
I don't know how long I've had this account on Facebook.
Is this your second one as well?
I think so, yeah.
And is it because you forgot your password?
Probably.
See, and she was making fun of me. Busted.
Well, of course.
Busted.
But I don't. I have not cheesecloth memory, but freaking large sieve memory.
Yeah, I was gonna say my mind is like a steel sieve. Nothing stays.
I mean, there are big gaps in my memory. So I don't know if this is my original account or if I had another one and why I created a new one.
I got one for you. I got one for you. You remember MySpace?
Yes.
Who remembers? Who had a MySpace
goodness,
account?
Renee.
What? Oh, Renee says I moved over from MySpace. Farmville was new.
I used to play.
We were just talking about
yeah.
That's hilarious.
It popped up as
I was saying it. So we're on the
it.
same wavelength, right?
Yes.
Yeah, MySpace. I remember MySpace. I had a MySpace page. I still probably have a MySpace page.
I think we all still have.
Yeah, I know. He just kind of abandoned it. But you remember you could actually put music before all the copyright crap was out there. You could customize your page, and it was like the old
hours doing that.
I know. He spent all this time getting it set up just right.
Oh my goodness.
And then before that was GeoCities, man.
Nope, never got into it.
That was
I
hard.
didn't even know about it until you and the Pizza Fairy were talking about it last year.
GeoCities, yeah. Yeah, GeoCities was a really old one, but yeah, MySpace was a freaking nightmare, man.
I liked MySpace.
Yeah, I suppose. I gotta see if I wonder if MySpace, I think
we
still
looked
exists.
this up once before.
Did we? I don't know. Well, if we did, I don't remember it, so I'm looking it up. Let's see over here. Let's see. Michael says, I remember MySpace. Yeah.
And David is asking, Chris is putting out.
What? It says, hi guys. Have to look at you on my phone because my iPad won't show the comments. Stupid iPad.
Bummy.
Terrible, man. Let's see. Apparently MySpace is still a thing. What?
Oh my.
Wow, I wonder if it's got my thing. Here, we'll go to search and see if it's got my... my
start
stuff.
typing.
But it's just a giant cursor. Let's see. Well, that's definitely not me. It says Chris Lee, the Love Beads. Nope, not me. I'm not touching that one. Let's see. I don't even know. How do you... I have no idea, man. Wow, there's a lot of Chris Lees out there.
There are.
That's probably not me. No, that is definitely not me.
That is not you, and the band cover is a new one.
Yeah, Avenged Sevenfold. At least they have good taste in music.
Yeah, pretty much.
Renee says, I deleted my page. Oh, well, I don't think I ever did. I think I just kind of abandoned it.
Oh, I know. I abandoned mine.
Yeah. So now I'm kind of curious. I have to go back there and see if I can find myself. If it still exists. Maybe they delete them with what?
You have to find yourself.
Well, I'm having an existential crisis today. Please assist me.
Sorry, I could not address that one.
David says MySpace was in the other room.
That's funny.
Yeah, wow, I kind of remember fiddling with it, but it was such a long time ago. Mm-hmm. You know, if you think I got the 30-second issue, man, that was eons ago.
It was. Ooh. It was.
And I remember, everybody was like, it's MySpace. And then Facebook came out and went, bonk.
Pretty much.
Yep. And at some point in the future, I'm really hoping somebody does that to Facebook. Just comes out and says, donk. Unfortunately, they got a lot more ammunition than MySpace ever had, so...
Yeah.
You got a couple more dollars.
It'll take some time.
1 or 2. We'll have to see how that goes. Let's see. Renee says, I'm okay, you're okay.
I'm okay, you're
okay.
okay.
Did I do 30-second thing? Did I forget something?
Apparently you took me with you. Your existential
Oh, my existential crisis, yes. I have to find myself all by myself. What? Come on, work with me, Lois.
Oh, I think you just made me deaf. Oh no, and Carrie's saying, good luck with that endeavor, Chris.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Oh, so speaking of weird sounds, because I was just doing the song. That was the Mogwai song.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, what did we watch yesterday that you were so excited to see?
Trouble with Triples.
Yeah, it was great. So we've been watching Star Trek, the original show, the original series.
For some time now.
Yeah, when we have time, we like to squeeze in an episode or two. And we've been watching it, and she's been waiting because that's like her favorite episode
It is.
of all time.
It is.
And last night, it finally happened.
It did. Yes. I want a Tribble.
You want a true?
I do. I want a Tribble.
Yeah, they are cute.
They
I just
are.
don't want them to multiply like that.
No. Good Lord, no. That'd be horrible. I mean, just.
What
no.
if they reacted to you like they did with the Klingons?
Okay, then that would be horrifying too. No.
Oh, man.
Oh, Renee says I love that episode.
Okay, so there was the original Trouble with Tribbles episode. Who remembers, okay, whether you like the show or not, I don't care, but Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine did an episode where they went back in time to the Trouble with Tribble episode, and they had their characters mixing with the old ones. They CGI'd the thing, and they had it was amazing. So much fun.
I never saw it. I
We
never
have to
got
watch
into DS.
Yeah, but there's a Tribble episode.
I'm just saying. I never got into that
It
one.
got good later. It took a while for it to get in its stride, and then war broke out, and it was awesome. It was amazing, man. There was stuff blowing up everywhere. People were dying. There was blood, guts, and bleep everywhere.
Oh boy.
It was awesome. Boom.
Gina says love Tribbles, and Renee says yes, that was awesome with the crossover.
Yeah, for the DS9.
Yeah, huh?
Let's see. Classic Star Trek is awesome. Yes, it is.
Yes.
And Carrie says, Facebook is the leading cause of divorces and arguments among couples. Topping financial issues, which I find hilarious because Facebook is not what causes it. There are underlying issues that, because people are stupid, Facebook exposes.
Oh well, yeah, like
Just
not
be
telling
honest
the
in your
truth.
relationship and all of that stuff, and you'll be fine.
It's a novel concept for some
I
reason.
know. It's like, how does it even work? I mean, you've already got problems, so it's not Facebook's fault. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Ann says, I remember when I would beg my parents to stay up late on Wednesdays to watch it.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, and I was introduced to the Star Trek universe by my dad.
Of course. That's
So,
how I think that's pretty much how we all
Yeah.
started.
Dave says, still got my lab coat on. Let's genetically splice and make some. Pretty sure we can gather shredded fur for them from our combined pups.
You're totally right, Dave. I like it.
Oh my goodness.
Although,
Yeah.
we have to have some, so you've got the cute fuzzy ones. I want to make some attack tribbles. He's talking about genetically modifying them. What if we take them and splice them with jackalope genes?
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, you could have a tribble that's half tribble, half jackalope, man. And then you'd have this little ball of fur with horns and teeth.
A tribolope.
A tribalope. I like it. A tribalope. I could
Oh
totally
my! But that is a good idea. For not that.
Come on,
for use of shedded dog fur.
yeah, making stuffies out of them. Unless somebody's allergic.
Making tribbles.
Yeah, you know what? We should tell you. We'll sweep the floor today and see if we can make a tribble.
I don't think it's one.
Well,
I think it's more than one.
it
I think
depends
it's
on
a
how
whole
dense
litter.
Yeah, a whole litter.
I truly think it would be a whole litter of tribbles.
Oh man, and Dave's got the Wolfie dogs, so they got a lot of hair going on over there. It'll be slightly coarser though.
That is true. That is true. Oh, and then Renee says between all of us, we could have some awesome looking tribbles. Yeah.
And then you know what? We could sell them on Etsy and as a craft fair item. Homemade tribbles from dog fur. Oh man. Terry says
Amen.
What?
Amen.
Oh, she says amen. I missed that part. Amen, Chrisley. Oh, what? All I saw was Chrisley. It was highlighted. Shh.
Yeah, and
Nice.
you go, all I saw was.
Shh. And it says, thanks guys, you're making me feel old because I watched the original series. Yeah, I watched the original series too. many years after it was over. Sorry. And says, baby kittens are like tribbles.
No, they're not.
No, because they've got the pointy razor claws of death and the little pointy
So
teeth.
they are your attack tribbles.
Yep, you know what? She's right. They are the kittens are attack tribbles. Those things are vicious, man. They latch onto you like razor claws of death. Those things are evil, man. They're cute, but evil.
Oh my goodness.
But no, because they've got legs and stuff, so it doesn't count.
That is true.
And,
but when they do
surgically
the whole-
removing all those parts would be unethical.
and cruel.
I know, see? So we have to
There
do
is-
it as something else.
I mean, you immediately jump to unethical. It's just wrong and cruel.
That would be unethical.
Oh, no.
Let's see. Renee says, I watched them when they were new, not in rerun. Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Really?
I mean, I'm just trying to picture in my head if I could. That would be like, I wish I could have seen the first moon landing.
Oh,
it's one of those moments
so
that's just
it was
epic.
in awe.
It-
Not okay.
No, it was because that's so cool. Could you imagine being able to experience it for the first time?
But if you think about it, learning about it or watching it for the first time, whether it's on rerun or not, is still the whole.
This is true. All right, fine. I was just trying to be. I thought it was fun. All right. Anyway, Carrie says, "Blow up the tribbles and watch for fire." Oh, vicious man! And Anne's lost it. Carrie says, "Original Star Trek, back when Captain Kirk was fine."
Oh yeah,
man.
we all get old.
He ain't old now. He's freaking ancient. He is part fossil.
Oh, good lord, no.
He is. He's a part fossil.
Oh.
But yeah, I don't know, man. That was it. But he had a toupee on, even all the way back then in the '60s.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Well, I
It
mean,
really
some
is.
people have the hair thing.
They do.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
A friend of mine has that issue, but he doesn't wear toupees. He just shaves his head. So there you go.
Actually, I think
What?
the friend of mine that shaves his head has the same issue.
Oh well, there you go. The easy solution is either wear a toupee or shave it. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much.
let's see. Renee says our television was black and white. We didn't get color until I was in 5th grade.
Wow.
That's cool.
That is.
Yeah, I actually had, believe it or not, we had a black and white TV. I've talked about this before.
Yes, you have.
You know, my dad, this is back in the day, but he had this amazing sound system to die for. It was these huge speakers. It had all of the, there was reel to reel. There was this. I mean, it had everything. And it was like a gajillion dollars worth of sound equipment. And nestled right in the middle of this whole thing was this little tiny black and white TV with aluminum foil antennas that only kind of worked. But the sound was epic.
So I have your father to blame for your whole sound thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, that's what happened.
Blame.
Renee says, about 75, William Shatner. I don't know how old he is. I'll look it up real quick. Now I'm curious. Let's see. William Shatner. How old is... You know what? This is pathetic.
What? 88.
Is it... Oh, did it say 88? Yeah, he's 88 years old. Holy hell.
Wow. Wow.
That is incredible. 88 years old. I'm impressed.
Yeah. So am I. Holy crow.
Yeah, that's it. It's
You
impressive.
go, dude.
Yeah, pretty much. Holy hell. I had no idea he was kicking around that long. Let's see. Ann says Chris Pine is fighter. He actually plays a good Captain Kirk.
He does.
I will give him that. I thought he did fairly well.
He does.
Yeah, I was not disappointed. And what's his name? The guy from Heroes that plays Spock? He doesn't do too bad either. Although they wrote it, I don't like the way they wrote the character. But when he's doing the Spock thing, it's not bad. What? Oh, am I missing something over here? Let's see. Oh, Dave says, Carrie mentions Kirk and Fine waiting on her next statement about Mimosa. Purposely misspelled and her transition to a finer man. That's funny. I like it, Dave. Good. See, we're going cross-platform here, guys. We've got a lot of people over here on the YouTube side and a lot on the Facebook. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
What? Renee says, no, 1975 was 5th grade. Oh. All right. Well, I was just... What? I just assumed she was talking about Shatner's
So did
age. All right, 75, she was in 5th grade. All right, gotcha. Yeah, I was, at that point, I was -5. So when you were in 5th grade, I was -5 years old.
-5 years old?
I was -5 years old when she was in 5th grade. How do you not understand that?
Because I didn't have enough coffee.
If I was born in
yeah.
1980 and she was in school in 1975, that would take 80 minus
Be careful.
75, -5 years old.
Be careful. I just remembered you have no shoes on. And I said the reason I'm having issues is because I did not have enough coffee.
What are you going to do? Pour coffee on my foot?
No, tickle him.
No. Tickle my feet? That's just not nice, man. That is just not nice. Let's see. David says, high school senior for color TV. Wow, that's impressive. And Carrie says, one episode when Kirk was stranded on a planet of seductive Martian women, I kept watching out for my grandma, thinking I was watching a dirty movie. That is amazing. Waiting for your mom to show up on TV.
No.
What?
She was waiting for Grandma to come into the room.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
She was worried she was going to get in trouble.
Carrie says, Momoa, did you say Momoa, Dave? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And Carrie says, is it so wrong to watch a Marvel movie?
Teach
no.
their own, Carrie.
Oh, that's funny. What are you talking about? You were doing the same thing, man.
No, actually, I wouldn't.
Mm.
Really.
And it's not a Marvel movie. It's
That
DC.
one's... I was going to say that one's
DC. Aquaman's DC.
Either way, we knew what she was meaning.
I know. I was just giving her a hard time. That's what I do. I give everybody a hard time. What? Let's see. Renee says he was a twinkle in his daddy's eye in 1975. She's helping explain it to you. I don't even think I was a twinkle at that point. Just saying.
So going by you being -5, I was -3.
You were -3?
I was -3.
Alright. So you finally figured it out, then the maths are lining up for you.
Yes. See, this is what happens when Lois does not have enough coffee.
Sure, blame it on the coffee, Lois.
I am.
I think it's
more
what?
on you.
It's all of that higher education is making your brain melt.
That could be too.
I'm telling
A
you.
combination of.
That is what it is. Oh, man.
Oh, and you
So-
just. Oh.
What?
What? You reminded me I have managerial finance and accounting stuff in this.
La 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 la.
It's your fault.
He's not.
Yeah.
It's your
You
fault.
reminded me.
Oh, jeez. Carrie says, whatever.
Yep. Whichever one it is, it's all good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Marvel, DC, doesn't matter.
No, not really. It's got Momoa in it.
Pretty much.
He was also in the Baywatch movie. I think we talked about this
Yeah,
at one point.
yeah.
He doesn't even look like himself. He's got short hair and he's clean shaven.
Yeah.
It's freaky, man.
It is.
It's freaky. It's like, no. Because I first met him, I've mentioned this before too, but I know him as Ronan from Stargate Atlantis.
Yes.
And he pretty much looks exactly like he does now, except he was younger. Yeah, he's got muscular, long hair, got the beard thing, kicking everybody's butt.
Well, in Stargate Atlantis, didn't he have the dreads? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he did. And it's exactly like he does stuff now. He's jumping around, kicking everybody's butt. It was cool. I liked him then, and then I started seeing him pop up in other stuff, and I'm like, well, apparently he's popular.
There are some no, not stereotypes, typecasting that actually works.
Yeah, for him, it definitely works. He's got that. What was the Honest trailer?
Yes.
He's got his superpower is the smolder. You guys gotta watch that. Honest trailer for Aquaman. Look it up. You're gonna die. It's hilarious. Oh, man.
My goodness.
Let's see. Dave says Carrie needs to move over here so we can see all the comments that Chris can't read aloud. Oh, yes.
Just use your imagination.
Just use these are not the comments you are seeking. Carrie says the important part was Momoa. I didn't even know his name until 3 days before Aquaman came out.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's great. David says enough fingers and toes. Oh, for counting. I was like, hey, what's going on here? Are we going divergent here?
Oh, no.
All right, guys, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us both on Facebook and YouTube, guys. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up on YouTube and hit the subscribe button and that little bell so you get notification that you guys on Facebook's. Thank you for liking, commenting, and sharing. We do appreciate it. I'm going to have a split personality disorder really soon. Oh, wait, I already have it. Never mind. Bye, everybody. Have an amazing day.
Bye, guys.